I am doing this intro from my car, so excuse me for that. But this is the circumstances of things in Riyadh. I'm sorry about that. Okay, so resource section has everything that you are used to, as well as the Telegram group. You know how important the Telegram group is, so please make sure you join the Telegram group. Without further ado, I'm going to stop here and introduce our amazing speaker, Jazz, who is joining us from the UK, who has accumulated multiple years of experience in building fintech products in all domains, from savings products to digital banks to investment products, and will be shedding some insight and light on building a fintech product with us today. For all of you who are interested to continue following Jazz and learn more about what he does, he also maintains a beautiful um, uh, blog, which you can also find in, well, if you do a quick Google search, but we will share the link to that blog. So if you want to learn more about building a fintech product and you want more information on that, following his blog is going to be a great idea as well. Uh, Without further ado, Jas, I'm going to turn it over to you. Thank you very much for joining us. We're looking forward to learning from you. I know it's a very big topic. You only have a limited amount of time, but we will try to give as much information to our audience as we can. Thank you again for being with us today, Jas.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for the intro, Kareem. Yeah, as Kareem said, there's a lot to cover, so I won't go add too much to the intro. Instead, I'll jump straight into the agenda for today. So, how to build a fintech product. We're going to cover the basics of product management and the typical product development lifecycle, the importance of discovery, building a fintech in Saudi, some of the nuance versus building anywhere else or building a generic product, some of the challenges and trends, of which there are some, the core components of successful fintech products, examples, a couple of examples of successful fintechs globally, and enough time at the end for Q&A. Yeah, and just a quick touch on the Q&A. If you've got any questions on specifically digital banking products, how to build a digital bank in Saudi, I have experience of doing just that. I've also built a digital banking product in Australia. I've led an SME lending platform. I've built a PFM app. So if anyone is looking to join the hackathon and build something in PFM or investment, feel free to drop any questions towards the end. So jumping straight in, for me, the most important how of building a product in 2025 is actually truly understanding product management, the role of product managers, and what product management means in 2025. So product management is broadly the process of overseeing the development, launch, and life cycle of a product. It involves understanding the customer needs, technology and market trends, defining product features, prioritizing tasks, and coordinating across teams to deliver value to users and achieve business goals. Very generic definition, kind of dictionary definition almost, but for me, product management is the art of delivering the right product to the right market, focusing on understanding customer needs, defining the product strategy, and ensuring execution. That's the very simplistic definition of product. Now, over the past 20 years, the role of product management has evolved from largely a tactical function to a strategic leadership role within organizations. Initially, product management focused on coordinating between engineering and marketing teams to bring products to market. However, as technology and customer expectations have advanced, especially with the rise of digital products and services, the role of product has expanded significantly. One of the main drivers of big tech companies like Google, Apple, and Amazon, they played a pivotal role in this kind of product management evolution. They recognized the need for a dedicated focus on user experience, data-driven decision-making, and rapid iteration. Product managers at these companies, and I think you'll see it on everyone's CV, product managers at Google, Apple, Amazon, Meta are some of the most highly sought after product managers in the globe. Product managers at these organizations became central figures. They who are responsible for driving innovation, prioritizing features based on customer insights, and aligning product strategy with overall business goals. This long shift turned product management into a high impact function that guides the success of products from conception to end of life, influencing the entire organization. Working with the business, product researches a problem area, defines what success looks like, implements the right framework to help hit these milestones. Working with technology, product perform analysis to define what features and workflows will look like. They do discovery, create technical specs that engineers can understand and build from. And working with design, product simplifies what the digital proposition is, creates wireframes, assists with prototypes, refines the structure of an app, and work with the design to create the tone and messaging of the product. So product sit slap bang in the middle of the core of the organization. And really what we're trying to achieve with product is to obviously build a product at the end, and the product development lifecycle goes through some distinct phases. This is very much a waterfall view of how a product is developed using this diagram. But there are a couple of other methodologies, and I'll go through those shortly. But loosely, there are 6 or 5 key functions of that product development lifecycle. There's discovery, which involves identifying and validating customer needs, market opportunities, business objectives to really define what problem the product should solve. There's design, which creates solutions that addresses user needs and business goals. There's the build phase, which I think is probably the phase that everyone is familiar with, the actual engineering of the product by transforming designs into actual features through coding, testing, and iterations. Then there's obviously launch, releasing the product to the market, ensuring effective communication, marketing, and support to drive user adoption. And then the last, this is why I said 5 instead of 6, which these two are sometimes grouped together. There's growth and scale. Growth is focused on user engagement, optimizing the product based on data, and scaling user acquisition effects. And scale is really expanding the product's reach and infrastructure to handle larger audiences, whilst not increasing the costs of managing that product. And the reason that product management and the product management function is very important across these different phases is that they perform key functions in each of these phases. So during ideation and discovery, product will perform market analysis, do customer research, put them into maybe a jobs to be done framework, making clear what the problem areas are, do product and idea validation, and build out product strategy and vision. During design, they'll do things like feature mapping. They will assist with the MVP, MLP creation, MVP, minimum viable product, MLP, minimum lovable product. The distinction between the two is MVP is largely functional. MLP is something that customers will really adopt and share with their friends and family. There's product road mapping, assistance with wireframing, and vendor and part selection. Then during the build, product obviously aren't often writing code, but what they do is shape the team, build the requirements templates, establish ways of working, help with things like partnerships if vendors are part of the build, and help build out that backlog. Then launch, help with the launch strategy, usually working with marketing, look at what the success metrics look like, identify key user groups, and implement lean feedback loops. And then growth and scale, this 5th or sometimes 5th and 6th sections. Build out and review the customer feedback loops, look at customer markets, new market segments, build out product operations. So that's like the process of the tools that are used to map metrics and give feedback back to customers, and really do that continuous discovery process. That's a very simplified version of what product development lifecycle looks like. This is, I guess, a very linear sequential view of what that product build process is. You do some discovery, you take discovery, you build designs. From designs, you take them into build and build out those designs into a real product. Then you launch the product, then you grow it, then scale it. this is the expectation that's very linear. The reality can be very different. This is just an example from Monzo's journey. So Monzo is a digital bank in the UK. So Monzo did a discovery and design dual phase, and then they hit a couple of snags post build. They hit some hiring issues. After they first launched, they were investigated by the FCA. During their growth, a couple of funding phases collapsed. There were some regulatory breaches. There's a delivery slowdown. So the reality of product development is far from just a sequential discovery, design, build, launch, growth, scale. It's actually often fraught with some issues. And broadly, why is product management important to building a fintech product? It's because building a fintech product means putting a product management hat on and really thinking about who would this product benefit? How do we find the group? How does this product need to evolve to continue to be relevant? What technology trends facilitate the growth of my idea? Has this been done before? If so, how will I differentiate? And it's very much answering lots of those questions early on and then helping shape what their solution looks like. Now, as Kareem said, we're very short on time in this session. I could probably spend a week going through how to build a fintech product and maybe spend just a day on a single topic. So instead of going through all of these different phases, discovery, design, build, launch, scale, growth, scale, I'm actually going to focus on one topic which is absolutely crucial to building a successful fintech product in Saudi, in the UK, in the US, pretty much anywhere in the world, and it's discovery. So discovery is important for a whole variety of reasons. The main reason that for me it's the critical element of building a fintech product is it will underpin every single thing that happens subsequent to that initial bit of research. So discovery will underpin what kind of customers you go after during the launch phase, for example. It will define how you segment customers, what the brand looks like, what country you launch in initially, what features you go to market with, whether you're able to get investment, how to navigate regulatory and governmental restrictions, what tech is out in the market to enable the product to succeed, even get from greenfield to MVP. So discovery is an absolutely crucial part of the product development process, and it's for me the actual critical part of building not just a fintech product but any product. And just to go through an example of an exercise I actually did in Saudi last year, I was working for a venture fund, and we were essentially looking at what are the opportunities out in the market, what should we build, why should we build it, and I actually went through this entire process and actually underpinned all of this opportunity thesis with discovery. So we started off by looking at global trends, what's happening globally, what are the trends that either support or go against our hypothesis. What are the trends in MENA? So usually when you're building a product, even if it's in a specific country, usually you look a little bit broader, see what's happening in surrounding areas. What are the trends in terms of product usage? What's the trends in terms of product usage? What are people doing generally? What's the demographic of the area? Is it changing? Is it remaining the same? Then you go deeper on a specific country. You do the same exercise, but within KSA. For example, during the discovery process last year, I pulled out some interesting stats on the youth population, what kind of products they were using, like what their Instagram and TikTok usage was like, how they invest, for example, and really understanding the regional trends that underpin the product. Looking at investment, building a product is great, but you need investment to do it. So really looking at where the investment is flowing, how and why is it flowing into certain areas, understanding the regulatory and governmental policies. So for example, what does SAMA's next cohort look like? What are they pushing? Again, maybe it could be, as Fintech Saudi have maybe alluded to, it could be PFM and investment management. That's an area that I also looked deep into because of regulatory push in these specific areas. Then obviously there's customer trends. What are customers actually doing? What do they need? What are they doing day to day outside of fintech? How do they shop? Where do they like to go on holiday? What do they do for work? And then like really diving into what problems they're facing day to day. Tech, really looking at what tech is in the region. Things like how are people using open banking? How mature is the open banking market? What data can we access? How mature is AI? Um, what's the role of AI in specific products? How are people currently using it? And then there's this final piece of the puzzle, which for me again is crucial because maybe because I'm biased and I'm a product person, is product saturation. So it's really looking at what does the current fintech product ecosystem look like? Is it saturated in specific areas? Are there lots of digital banks popping up? Are there a specific number of SME lenders growing in the region? Is BNPL oversaturated? Is there lots of white space in, for example, business analytics? Or maybe the white space is in SME banking, which means there's a big opportunity to build an SME bank. So discovery is absolutely crucial to building a fintech product. And actually, the reason it's crucial is because discovery the discovery process answers lots of key questions about how to build, what to build, why to build, who to build for. So, for example, who would this product benefit? How do we define the group? What does the market look like? Who's already in the market? Has it been done before? What does the investment flow look like? Do regulations accelerate my product development or hinder it? Does technology in the region or exist to build the product, or do we have to build it? So it underpins lots of the core underlying functions of building a product. And there's a few different ways. I think I showed one which was very much waterfall. It's going through sequential order of doing some discovery and then kind of getting to a stage where discovery is reasonably complete, moving on to design, then build, then launch. This is a slightly different. It uses very much the same phases, but it's a double diamond approach, which is you do some you go broad on the discovery, then you start to focus in on key problems in the define phase. Then in those key problem areas, you develop some concepts, prototypes maybe, and then you test those in the market. You do some customer research, and then you really focus in on the specific MVP, and the delivery phase is focused on what to build. So for example, you might have a hypothesis, which is this is just one I semi-made up, but it's kind of grounded in some research I've done in the region. It's high net worth individuals are underserved by current digital banking and investment tools. This was before Kareem's announcement at the start about PFM and investment tools, by the way. So there's a hypothesis there. During the discovery, define, develop, and delivery phase, there'll be a number of key things that you would do during the double diamond process. So during the discovery phase, you would go survey real people. You would understand, is my hypothesis correct? Let's go interview some high net worth individuals. Let's explore some markets where some of these individuals might sit. Let's do one-on-one in-depth interviews to uncover pain points. So, where do these individuals currently bank? Who do they bank with? Are they happy with their current banking providers? Where do they invest? How do they invest? Why do they invest? Looking at core competitors if there are some, and then really going into interviews to see, do current products serve their needs effectively or not? Then once that is done, and again, you collect lots of broad insights, you would then focus on specific jobs to be done. And jobs to be done are simply what are key problems that customers are facing in that segment. Identify customer segments and personas, conduct even deeper market research, and unpack the core hypotheses. For example, one of the hypotheses might be high net worth individuals used to be satisfied with banking and investment solutions, but since the boom of the digital age, they're now underserved by traditional banks. That could be one of the core hypotheses. Then you would develop prototype concepts based on the hypotheses. For example, going back to the previous hypotheses, you would maybe develop a concept that looked like a digital bank, which was very much aimed at high net worth individuals, very polished designs, not focused on microfinance, for example, but focused on, lifestyle products, and embedding things that came out of that initial discovery and define phase, conduct user interviews based on those concepts, and continue to survey people based on their hypotheses. And then you would go into the delivery phase where you actually start to hone in on one or two of these prototypes. You would start to build one or two of these prototypes, refine and validate, give the built product back to your interviewed customers, and really see whether the product resonates with that original group or not. As I said, this is a very short, sharp session. This is a almost 5-minute view on how to build a fintech, how to build a product using the double diamond process. But if you want any more information on that, please feel free to drop a question. I'll also try and send some resources on that afterwards. And now specifically looking at fintech in Saudi. So we've got how to build a product, but really the product could be in digital banking, could be investment banking. What I always like to do is kind of give a picture of broader fintech. This could also be, again, a very nice introduction into the introduction to fintech course that Fintech Saudi is running in a few weeks. What I like to do is kind of give what are all of the segments within this broad term of fintech that we like to use. So, for example, there is digital banking. Again, these are very much Western examples, but I will move to a bit of a Saudi view in the next slide. So underneath the fintech banner, there's digital banking. There's the rise of blockchain and crypto. We've got payments layer. Obviously, we've got Google Pay, Apple Pay with tokenization, Stripe with payments facilitation, and companies like Wise and Remitly with cross-border remittance. SME finance, consumer finance, insurance, mortgages and real estate, wealth management, reg tech, investment and capital markets, personal finances, alternate investments, and one that often underpins most of these propositions, infrastructure. I usually spend 10 to 15 minutes on this slide, but obviously, again, in the interest of time, kind of speeding through this, but this is really just to give you a high-level picture of the kind of the breadth of fintech. And then this next slide is really to show some of what is currently there in the Saudi fintech scene. So some of the bubbles that I presented in the previous slide are already there. What you'll notice is in some of the digital banking segments, maybe in the even in the PFM segment, in the analytics and the digital bank for corporate and SME fintechs, there's still a lot of opportunity. There aren't a lot of major players, whereas in the UK and US, there are around 20 to 30, if not more, digital banks just on the consumer side. There aren't as many in Saudi Arabia. Then when you look at things like SME fintechs, so one of the goals of Vision 2030 is to increase the number of SMEs and increase SME finance and SME innovation in the region. That needs to be underpinned by digital solutions. At the moment, there aren't that many. I think Hala is the only one that's really focused on SME digital banking. So again, when we look at how to build a fintech, there's how to build, but there's also, as part of that discovery phase, it's understanding what to build and where to build. Looking at this, product landscape, it's really important to kind of identify, okay, I have a few hypotheses, but actually the opportunity is in the SME digital banking space, or it's in the SME finance space, maybe less so on the alternative credit, where the likes of Tabby and Tamara have really dominated the market. The other really interesting thing to know about building a fintech in Saudi is that some of the demographics are very unique compared to other markets. So a few of the things that I noticed when I was doing some research last year for this venture fund is that a large proportion of the population are under 30 and actually have quite a high monthly per household income. When you look down to the bottom left, 20% of surveyed retail investors are invested in the stock market, but actually a lot more of them are investors, which shows that there's a potential gap in terms of giving access to global investments. And then the one on the far right, which is the one that kind of jumped out to me quite a bit, is that only 31% of Saudi adults are considered financially literate, which is a lot lower than the likes of Germany, UK, or even South Africa. So again, it's all important to know that discovery is key because it will pull out insights like this, and it will underpin, what kind of proposition you build, what kind of product you build, who you build it for, and the important thing is the why of the build. That's just on the consumer side. On the SME side, again, this is why I think SME fintech in Saudi specifically is a huge opportunity. SME growth since the launch of Vision 2030 has doubled. We look at increased lending quotas on the bottom right of that chart, 5.4% to 8.3%, 54% growth. I think when you look at the Vision 2030 numbers, there's still a long way to go, which means there's an opportunity to provide more digital financing solution for SMEs specifically. And yeah, when you look at the current pain points on the right-hand side, the pain points are very much the same pain points that exist in the UK. I guess the difference is Saudi has a lot more aggressive targets in terms of its growth numbers, which again means that there's a much greater opportunity to innovate. And yeah, looking at this one statistic, which is a story, not a statistic, a quote from Vision 2030. By 2030, SAMA plans for there to be 525 local fintech companies. So I think at the moment we're at the 230, 240 mark. So essentially, in the next 5 years, the number of fintechs need to double. Again, that presents a huge opportunity, but building a fintech needs to be based in those foundations that I went through earlier. So there are already a few success stories when you look at fintech in Saudi. There's Tamara, Saudi's first fintech unicorn, BNPL provider that serves over 10 million customers. I think it's well over the 10 now. I think it's at 11. There's Lendo, one of the very few SME lending platforms, which is a slightly different model, which is a P2P lending model. There's Sukuk Capital, which is a capital financer, and actually probably the last one, which is the most interesting one for me, because I've worked in open banking for a while as well, is Lean Technologies, founded in 2019. I think it's one of the torchbearers for innovation in the region. So there are success stories already, but there are also challenges. Again, these challenges not only go into just fintech generally, but specifically how to build a fintech product. There's talent. That's not to say that there's no talent in Saudi Arabia. There's a lot of talent. I've worked with lots of great people in Saudi. It's just that the growth targets are very aggressive in terms of how fast it wants to grow, and talent often takes time to nurture. Often to solve that, what people do is, go overseas. They'll try and pick out US talent, UK talent, talent from elsewhere in the region, specifically UAE now as well. So there are ways to overcome that. There's regulations. I've faced off to SAMA a few times. I think sometimes the regulatory framework can be slow. It's very much the same in other regions as well. Often to overcome that, it's about bringing on people who know the regulations well, bringing people into your product development process who have good contacts and connections in Saudi. That can often be an accelerator to product development. And then the third and final one, which is probably the biggest restrictive factor that I found in the region compared to, again, the West, is enablement infrastructure. And what I mean by that is the banking as a service infrastructure that has often enabled fintechs in the UK and US to grow and scale aggressively. So, things like payments infrastructure, core banking infrastructure, products that enable you to use APIs to access payment initiation. Open banking is less of a banking as a service restrictor, but there aren't as many platforms in Saudi as there are in the West. I think Network International, Emacred are two of the payment processors in the region that kind of enable digital banking innovation, but there aren't as many as there should be, and this is one of the challenges. I'm going to very much zip through these trends. I think banking as a service, again, although I've mentioned it as a challenge, the trend is that there is a lot of investment going into building BaaS infrastructure. So, again, if you're looking to build a fintech product, sometimes people want to build consumer-facing fintech products when the need is actually things like a banking as a service platform that really underpins other products. Digital banks, again, I've touched on it. There are 4 or 5 maybe consumer digital banking propositions in Saudi, T360, STC, Vision Bank, and probably one other that I'm missing. But the expectation is that digital banking solutions are going to grow. And when you look at Western markets and when you look at the size of the population and like some of these kind of micro segments within Saudi, there's lots of opportunity in digital banking still. And again, especially on the SME banking side. Blockchain and AI as a trend, I think probably don't need to go into that in too much detail. I think it's a natural trend. I think it's also a global trend, not just Middle East and KSA. Cross-border payments, I think the remittance market in KSA is huge compared to lots of other markets in the world. I've been on the ground and I've seen how Saudi wheels turn, how the economy is supported, and I think remittance is a major part of that. So cross-border payments is going to be a big trend in the next couple of years. And then again, open banking, I'm very bullish on the power of open banking and open data to really innovate. And I think in the next couple of years, there'll be lots more fintech products built using open banking as there has been in the West. So for me, I think, running back to the how to build a fintech product, I think building a fintech product, I think means focusing on a few different characteristics. And these are the characteristics I've seen on like the unicorn fintech products that are kind of global names. They've always built initially with a specific niche in mind. So they focus on a kind of unique segment, whether that's, initially, I'll touch on Monzo in a minute, but Monzo was a digital bank in the UK. They very much focused on kind of the mass affluent market who used to travel a lot, and they were very much tech in the tech industry. So, London-based tech workers who used to travel, and they issued cards to them, gave them 0 fees. This was the niche they focused on initially, and it served them very well. Successful fintechs leverage tech and data in new ways. Again, we can look at how digital banks over the past 5 to 10 years have really kind of changed the way banking happens. So, banks have always had access to transaction data and balance data, but it's only digital banks, in the early 2010s, 2014, 2015, digital banks that really gave users real-time transaction feeds, the ability to click into a transaction and look at maps, have kind of balance predictions using transactions, see upcoming bills. Successful fintechs really use tech and data in new ways, and that's something that everyone should be thinking about when they're building a new fintech. Again, they serve insights to customers in new and innovative ways. It kind of comes back to not only using and processing the data, but also serving it to people in different ways. Again, I think anyone who has a digital banking product will maybe see things like spending analytics and have that kind of pie chart or bar charts. I think, the early days of internet banking, they had the data. They never thought to kind of serve it in this new and innovative way. And then four, going back full circle to the importance of discovery into building successful fintech products is solving key problems for customers. So again, if we look at a company like Monzo, the key problem they were solving was customers were really frustrated when they would go on holiday and they would be charged exorbitant fees for either going to an ATM and taking out cash or paying with their card abroad. That was the thing that Monzo solved at the time for this very specific niche, but they focused on a key problem and then grew from there. I'm very conscious of time. I'll quickly speed through two success stories. I think one of them is Stripe. I think everyone's probably heard of Stripe payments facilitator. When we talk about niche, they focused on just processing US credit cards for startups, and now they're one of the most valuable fintechs on the planet. Started with a very small team. They, again, going back to discovery, they did their discovery. They knew that the competition was imperfect. They knew that they could focus on. It was very much innovative internet businesses. So they focused on niche, and they knew that there was a shift to mobile and API first tech. So that was kind of where they operated, and obviously they're one of the most successful companies on the planet. And then I've touched on Monzo throughout this presentation. This is Monzo in 2015, very basic. What they've done is they've evolved over time, but initially they did their discovery. They spoke to people in East London, people working in tech. They got their frustrations. They built a product to serve this specific niche, and over time they've added things like credit products, the ability to see your mortgage in a product, to look at credit insights, and a whole host of other things. So I think, wrapping it up, I think, how do you build a fintech product? Again, I would love to go through a full end-to-end on the design, the build, the launch process, and looking at growth strategy and scale strategy. There's just no time, unfortunately, maybe for another session. But in terms of how you build a fintech product, what are the major things you need to do? Really understand customers' pain points. Define a sharp niche product hypothesis. Who are you solving for? What is the problem? Why does it need to be solved now? Validate very quickly. Map out your regulatory path. So really get someone with regulatory expertise, either as an advisor or consultant, or tap into regulatory resources early. Decide on build versus buy. Again, there's a big debate on selecting BaaS vendors. Again, that is a challenge in the current Saudi market, but I think in the future it'll become a lot easier to partner with a BaaS vendor to get to market a lot quicker. Again, leverage existing partners where possible. And probably finally, and most importantly, as I've touched on a number of times, do your research. Discovery is the most vital piece of the product build process. Again, I've built 6 fintechs in my time. The core component that I've seen when some fintechs have failed has been the discovery process has not been done right. It's not been done thoroughly, and it's not been done also continuously. So get that right, and then you'll build something successful. That's it from me. My name's Jashar. I'm product consultant. Again, you can see the details in here. If you would like to connect with me on LinkedIn, if you want to scan that QR code, that takes you directly to the blog that Kareem mentioned at the top. And if you've got any questions, I would love to address them now. If there's any specifically on building a digital bank, building an SME product, key things to watch out for, acquisition strategy, anything in between, then feel free to jump up now.
Thank you very much. This was very, very insightful. I have a couple of questions that are coming in, but
Right.
before that, some of the more general questions that are coming in, people are asking about more information, technical information, I'm going to refer them back to your blog, which is Fintech Under the Hood.
Yeah.
And from there, I'm sure they can go down a rabbit hole and find quite a bit of information related to building a product in the fintech space. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, so there's on the Substack, there's specifically a section called Under the Hood. It goes through things like how a payment works. So if you're building a payments product, it shows like how does a card payment work from the payment terminal all the way to the core banking platform, what providers you need to set up, what the core functions are, every step of the way. I've mapped out again like how open banking works.
Do you wanna actually share maybe your screen and maybe just show us the so
Ye-
because I was going through it and it's very informational, and I think a lot of these technical questions and more in-depth question can be
Sure.
shown directly.
Yeah.
So maybe just
Uh,
open up an example if you want, because it will help answer some of the questions that are coming in.
yeah. Can you see my screen now?
Yes.
So this, for example, this is kind of a diagrammatical overview of tokenization. So, when you get your when a customer gets a card number and the card number and they hit add to Apple Pay, this is the Apple Pay process. There is also a Google Pay process. What happens every step of the way? This is the diagrammatical version. Um, there is a descriptive version. So start to finish, the 1A bit here that I'm hovering over is the addition. So how you add a card to your Apple Wallet, what happens, who the token service provider is, the difference between Google and Apple Pay, which is that Apple Pay doesn't store tokens on their server. Tokens are only stored on the device, which is a device account number, how it gets to the issuing bank, and then the 2B flow shows what happens when a customer uses Apple Pay, taps at a merchant. What is that decisioning process, how it fires to your core banking platform, how authorization happens, and how it comes all the way back to the merchant. Again, all of this is, it happens in a like in a millisecond, effectively. To you, when you tap your card on a payment terminal and you see the authorization code, that authorization code has come from either your bank or your payment processor, but it doesn't feel like it because it happens so quickly. So you tap your card, all of this flow has happened, comes back, and then it says authorized or declined. And I think what you'll see is there's lots of stuff that happens in the background. It's just so quick and invisible to us that we don't realize. But again, if you're building a digital banking product, if you're building I don't know, like a revolving credit facility on a card, and you want to, give Apple Pay to your customers, it's good to know how some of this stuff works, what providers you need to speak to, and essentially what the flow looks like. And this is just one example. There are a few others.
Look,
Yeah,
one other question that I got that I thought it was important, especially here in Saudi Arabia, where we have
yep,
a culture of project management.
yep.
Can you and there is a bit of a mix up between product management and project management, totally different things. But can you maybe just shed a bit of light on that?
Yeah, I mean, for me, project management is more the, I'd say, some of the operational side of things. So a project manager will look at specific timelines, like when specific phases will start, when they're anticipated to finish, all the resourcing costs, the budgetary constraints. They will look at things like the contracts for vendors. They'll actually specifically look at contracts, procurement, um, and essentially, it's more the coordination of how all of the different teams fit together. Product is more focused on, again, what are we building? Why are we building it? Who are we building it for? Product managers, CPOs, head of product will speak to engineers, design, the business. Project managers don't tend to do that. They will, project managers will be a key ally for product people because product people don't tend to want to do project management, in my experience. They don't want to put a Gantt chart together and say, look, if we miss this um, deadline, we're going to lose 10,000 SAR, or This resource has to leave on this date. Product managers don't want to do that work. They want to focus on what are we building, why are we building it, who are we building it for, speak to engineering, unblock tasks, speak to vendors on capabilities. Project managers is more managing timelines, managing budgets.
Clear. Uh, uh, I want to go back to the discovery phase, which I agree with you is a very important phase. And a lot of the questions that are coming are directly related to the discovery phase, if I am not mistaken. And that's where I want you to maybe delve just a little bit deeper into it. So where does the PRD come in the life cycle, the product requirement document come in the development of the product cycle? Also, how do I make sure I'm building a product that is actually needed and I'm not actually building a product that is, build it and they will come. You pray that they will come. How do I go in depth into the market analysis, and what are some of the tricks that I need to take into consideration? And I'm assuming, yeah, based on what I learned from you, it's all very much related to the discovery phase before you actually start building. But can you maybe allude to that a bit more?
Yeah, let's start with the PRDs. You wouldn't write up a PRD before you've done any discovery. So essentially, if you're writing a product requirements, for me the key is in the name. You have to know what the requirement is. Where's the requirement come from? Because again, a requirement has to be from someone because it's a requirement. So you've mandated that it needs to be done. Okay, who has told you it needs to be done? What is the need? How are we going to serve the need? And all of that comes from, actually speaking to customers. This is like the very easiest, simplest way of doing discovery is building building a survey. You have a hypothesis. The first thing to do is write the hypothesis down. Again, I've gone to there's a lack of digital banks for high net worth individuals. I write my hypothesis down. Then I write a bunch of questions. Okay, what's a high net worth individual? Where do they currently bank? Like, what are some questions that would either validate my hypothesis or disprove my hypothesis? Put 10, 20 questions down in a survey. Go to a survey company like SurveyMonkey, Pollfish, Qualtrics. Send the survey out, fill out the key demographic information. For example, my hypothesis is based on 25 to 40-year-olds. Put in some restrictions, send the survey out, get 500 responses, start looking at the data. What are the responses? What are customers saying? Okay, I put some questions down around, oh, are you frustrated with your current banking service? And 90% of people said no, which tells me that okay, maybe the hypothesis is maybe incorrect. I need to tweak my questions. The first and very easy step to executing some discovery is doing some quantitative surveying, putting some questions out, getting some responses back. From there, you can say, okay, I say 90% are very happy with their current banking service. What about the 20%? What are the 20% frustrated with? Try and define what that 20% segment looks like, and then do qualitative interviews, which is like, for example, this. Kareem is part of that 20%. I ask him, okay, where do you work, Kareem? Where do you work? What's your average salary like? Who do you currently bank with? What are you frustrated with? What would you, if you could ask your bank to change one thing about their service, what would it be? What do you use in your banking app right now that's really valuable? What's what's in your banking app that they keep pushing but you never use? All of this feeds into the basis of, okay, disproving or proving your hypothesis, but it also starts to shape what the product looks like. Once you've done discovery and you've maybe done some, prototyping, that's the point where you start building product requirements documents, because that's the point where okay, my market size is 10 million people. At least half of that population want, I don't know, an AI assistant to tell me where my finances are because they've told me. Because I asked the question and the responses were overwhelming. They all said, yeah, I'd love for an AI assistant to be on top of all my finances. So yeah, starting PRDs come after you've done discovery, and one quick way to do discovery is put a hypothesis together, put some questions together. Lots of people are using ChatGPT now. You can literally write a hypothesis, put it into chat, give the prompt, I want to build a quantitative survey to prove my hypothesis, come up with 15 core questions and five screener questions, format it for SurveyMonkey, Pollfish, whatever. Done. Paste the questions into the tool, get the responses back. That's it. Your discovery is done. You can do it in 2 hours.
The
That's the
things we
basis
had
of.
to do back in the days, huh?
Yeah, I mean, it's a whole new world. I mean, I'm working on a project right now where you could do, like, we've effectively done the discovery work within 2 weeks. Usually it would take 3 months, and it's 2 weeks.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. I got one more question. Based on your experience here in Saudi Arabia, other than open banking, payment initiation, what other BaaS infra white spaces have you seen, or any other examples out of Saudi Arabia that you know of that are useful?
I'm gonna I'm gonna focus on Saudi. I think this is both BaaS and consumer facing
Okay.
for me. It's investment technology. So consumer investment technology, the ability to invest in stocks, shares around the world, like outside of Saudi, is really limited. So again, going back to some of the discovery I did last year on the ground, I did so many, like we went through so many qualitative interviews where Saudi residents were basically managing investments for 5 different people because their friends didn't have a, trading 212 account because this person had a UK driving license as well as a Saudi passport. So they were able to use a UK driving license to open an investment account in the UK because their friends did not have a UK driving license. They didn't have access to the investment technology. They couldn't buy stocks like Tesla. They couldn't buy UK banking stocks. They couldn't invest beyond their borders. And there are two challenges. One is the underlying investment infrastructure that is, largely in the UK and the US to a degree, is not there in Saudi. So to build a consumer-facing investment app, you need all of the underlying infrastructure, and the infrastructure isn't there. But I think once you build the underlying investment as a service infrastructure, it accelerates consumer investment products specifically for Saudi nationals. And again, when you go back to the on the ground research, Saudi household income is going up, but investment habits, like investments in stocks and shares and the global investment markets, isn't going up by the same rate. And one of the reasons is access to global investments. Also, maybe some level of education where the financial literacy element comes into it. But I think underlying investment as a service tech will really supercharge, the thing you touched on at the very start, personal finance management and investment technology.
Yes, thank you very much for your time. I'm not going to take more of your time. I still have plenty of questions coming in. I think our audience needs to do a bit of research on your Substack. Again, I'm not promoting it. I mean, I haven't seen a Substack that is that detailed. So please go visit it. Yes, it is on Substack if you're wondering. Just thank you very much. Very informative. Thank you for sharing your knowledge, your resources, and thank you for making this last session of the FinTech Summer Sessions extremely beneficial to our audience. We look forward to seeing you in many other sessions. For our audiences, thank you so much for being part of the FinTech Summer Sessions. We've had an incredible 8-week run. We are planning to have new sessions with new topics for next year, so keep your eye out on that. For all of you that are worried about your certificates, give us a bit of time. You will receive certificates. Please give us a bit of time. I promise you, you will receive certificates if you qualify for them. What's more important, if you don't receive a certificate, is the knowledge that you have acquired throughout the 8 weeks. We hope that you have benefited from it. We will be posting all the sessions online on the Telegram group, which some are already there. And as soon as in a week or two, you will be able to review all these sessions on our YouTube channel. So make sure to go back and look at them and review them whenever you need it. As always, we look forward to seeing you at Money 2020. We are, as Fintech Saudi, available to support you in your fintech journey. Feel free to reach out on LinkedIn or any other channel that you might have. And looking forward to seeing you all next year. Thank you, Jas.